It started on October 15th, a chilly Sunday afternoon that hinted at Halloween without fully committing to it. The sky was overcast, the leaves were crunching underfoot, and the scent of cinnamon and bonfires hung in the air. It was the kind of day that made you want to drink apple cider and hang fake cobwebs on your bushes. And that's exactly what the Johnson kids had been doing since early morning. Their house, tucked right in the middle of Willow Lane, had become the unofficial Halloween headquarters for the neighborhood. They had everything: foam tombstones with names like Barry D., Alive, and Al B. Back, skeletons arranged in dramatic poses on the front porch, flickering jack-o'-lanterns grinning wildly from the steps. A smoke machine puffed eerie clouds across the lawn while spooky music, mostly cackling witches and wolf howls, played from a speaker hidden behind a fake tree stump. It was theatrical, ambitious, and completely harmless. But not according to Karen. Karen lived directly across the street, in a beige house with perfect rose bushes and curtains that never, ever moved. No one had ever seen Karen blink, let alone smile. She was the type of neighbor who measured her grass with a ruler and once threatened to report a toddler for sidewalk chalk. And today, she was on the warpath. Around 2 p.m., she stepped out of her house wearing a matching pastel tracksuit, white sneakers so clean they looked bleached, and the dreaded clipboard, her weapon of choice when correcting neighborhood behavior. Her lips were pressed into a line so tight it looked painful, and her eyes were narrowed like she was about to perform an exorcism. She marched directly across the street to the Johnsons' yard, sidestepping a rubber rat with disdain. The kids, Emily, 10, and Josh, 12, were tying a plastic bat to a tree when they spotted her. Their mom, Lauren Johnson, came out of the garage just in time to intercept Karen, who had already begun her sermon. "This is completely inappropriate," Karen snapped, pointing at a skeleton wearing sunglasses and sipping from a plastic coconut. "You're turning this street into a carnival of darkness. Do you really think this is the image we want for our community?" Lauren, who was used to Karen's yearly crusade against anything remotely fun, took a deep breath and smiled politely. "Karen, it's Halloween. It's supposed to be silly and a little spooky. The kids love it." Karen didn't flinch. "The devil also loves when we celebrate darkness. Think about that." She tapped her clipboard dramatically, then handed over a laminated piece of paper that looked like it belonged on a church bulletin board. It read, "Community reminder, please refrain from putting up Halloween decorations after October 10th. Let's keep Willow Lane wholesome and God-honoring. Karen M., Neighborhood Values Committee ****. Lauren stared at the paper, then looked back at Karen. "Neighborhood Values Committee? That's not a real thing." Karen puffed up like a goose. "I founded it. After that horrifying inflatable Grim Reaper last year. We must draw the line somewhere." Before Lauren could answer, Karen turned on her heel and stormed off, plastic clipboard tucked against her side like a shield. Josh whispered, "Was she wearing holy water-like perfume?" and Emily giggled behind her hands. But Karen wasn't done. Over the next few hours, she made her rounds, knocking on doors like some kind of reverse trick-or-treater. The Lee family next door, who had just put up glow-in-the-dark window clings, got a mini lecture on opening portals through mockery. The Smiths down the block received a warning for their inflatable Frankenstein, which Karen claimed could cause nightmares in more delicate children. Even I wasn't spared. At around 5 p.m., I was setting up my own modest display, a couple of jack-o'-lanterns and a motion sensor crow that cawed when people walked by. My 5-year-old daughter had painted a small wooden sign that read ***, which way to the candy?" And proudly stuck it in the flower bed. Karen spotted me, crossed the street like a heat-seeking missile, and came to a full stop right in front of my scarecrow. "This is not acceptable," she said without even a greeting. "You're raising your child around spiritual decay. Do you want her to think this is normal? Because next thing you know, she's casting spells and thinking the undead are amusing." I blinked. "It's a crow, Karen. Made in China. It cost $7.99 at Target. She didn't laugh. Instead, she pulled another one of her laminated flyers from a folder and handed it to me solemnly. I accepted it, purely out of morbid curiosity. This one was titled *, 10 Reasons Halloween is a Gateway to Sin. Number 7 read, *, even dressing as a witch invites the spirit of Jezebel into your home. I looked up at Karen, unsure whether to laugh or feel sorry for her. Would you like a Snickers? I asked, holding out a fun-size bar. She looked at it like it was laced with arsenic. Sugar addiction is another tool of the enemy, she said, and stalked away. As she disappeared down the street, I stood in my yard, trying to decide if she was serious, or if this was just performance art taken too far. That evening, a new post appeared in the neighborhood Facebook group. Karen had uploaded a grainy photo of the Johnsons' yard with the caption, "This is what we've come to. Demonic statues. Smoke rising like some pagan altar. We are letting the darkness in, one inflatable skull at a time. Wake up, neighbors." It received 12 laughing emoji reactions and a few sarcastic comments. One person wrote, "Karen, it's literally a rubber skeleton with sunglasses." Another said, "I'll pray for your sense of humor." Karen responded only once. "Mock me if you must. I know where I stand. And more importantly, so does the Lord." By the end of the night, she'd blocked half the neighborhood and changed her profile picture to an American flag shaped like a cross. We all figured the Halloween drama would die down, like it did every year. She'd have her moment, complain about the war on decency, and move on. But this year was different. Because what none of us realized then was that Karen wasn't gearing up for a battle. She was preparing for a full-on, year-long war. Things didn't cool down after Karen's flyer campaign. If anything, she took the chilly winds of late October as divine encouragement to double down. With Halloween just around the corner, everyone else on Willow Lane was in peak spooky mode, webs were getting stretchier, pumpkins were multiplying, and one guy even installed motion-activated zombies that groaned when you walked by. But Karen wasn't impressed. She believed she was fighting for the soul of the neighborhood, and now that she had been laughed at online, she was determined to make her next move count. On October 20th, she showed up at the monthly HOA meeting. Normally, these meetings were sleepy affairs, with Rick, the HOA president, half-heartedly reading through complaints about barking dogs and overgrown hedges. But this time, Karen arrived early, armed with a stack of printed emails, 2 binders labeled Moral Degradation, 2021 to 2023, and a USB drive she claimed had evidence. She even brought cookies, though no one trusted them enough to eat one. As soon as public comments opened, Karen launched into her speech. Her voice was sharp and theatrical, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "We are under spiritual siege," she began, glaring at the board like they were co-conspirators. "When a child can walk down the street and be startled by a demon popping out of a bush, we have failed as a community. When skeletons hang from porches like we're celebrating death, we have lost our way. Halloween is not harmless. It is a gateway, first to fear, then to fascination, and finally to full-blown occultism." Rick blinked. He was used to complaints about trash bins, but this was new territory. "Karen," he said slowly, "while we appreciate your concern, Halloween decorations are not against HOA rules. People are allowed to decorate their homes, within reason. It's a holiday, not a declaration of war." Karen scoffed. "You say, within reason, but have you seen the Johnsons' house? It's like the set of a horror movie. My granddaughter saw it and had nightmares." Someone in the back whispered, "Your granddaughter lives in Florida," but Karen either didn't hear it or chose to ignore it. She pressed on. "I'm not asking for a full ban, yet. I'm simply requesting that we implement a holiday morality clause. No blood, no skeletons, no demonic imagery, and absolutely no motion-activated witches. Rick rubbed his temples. "That's not something we're going to enforce, Karen." She gasped like he'd just endorsed Satan himself. "You mean to tell me you're allowing spiritual violence in this neighborhood?" At that point, someone coughed loudly to cover a laugh. Karen's face turned red, but she didn't back down. Instead, she made an official motion for the HOA to vote on her clause. No one seconded it. She stormed out in dramatic silence, though not before handing Rick a Bible verse scribbled on a napkin, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Ephesians 5:11. The next morning, she was back at it. Since the HOA wouldn't listen, Karen took her message to the people. She went door to door, not with candy or cheer, but with more laminated pamphlets, this time titled Harvest and Holiness, a better way to celebrate October. Her plan was simple: organize a faithful fall walk as a wholesome alternative to Halloween. There would be apple cider, Christian music, and possibly hay bales arranged in the shape of a cross. The invite promised a gathering of pure autumn joy, with a strict dress code, no costumes, no masks, and definitely no fake blood. She posted the event on the community Facebook page, and, to her dismay, the first RSVP came from a neighbor who said, "Only if I can come as Moses and part the snack table." Karen deleted the comment and turned off replies. Still, she was hopeful. On the day of the event, she set up in her front yard with folding chairs, a speaker playing soft instrumental hymns, and an awkward centerpiece of gourds arranged around a framed photo of Jesus. She wore a sweater that read, "Fall for the Lord," in glittery gold letters and greeted passing cars with a smile that dared anyone to mock her. The turnout? 3 people. Her cousin Deborah, who was only there because Karen threatened to cancel their weekly lunch. A local dog walker who stayed for 5 minutes out of pity. And the mailman, who thought it was a church bake sale and left when he realized there were no brownies. The rest of the street was too busy setting up for the neighborhood Halloween block party. The Johnsons had rented a fog cannon. The Smiths installed laser lights. Even old Mr. Donnelly, who hadn't left his house in weeks, sat on his porch with a bowl of candy and a werewolf mask perched on his lap. The air was electric with excitement, and absolutely no one was interested in hay bales shaped like crosses. Later that night, while the kids were running up and down the street dressed as pirates and princesses and inflatable dinosaurs, Karen sat alone in her front yard. She hadn't taken down her display. The glow from her porch light illuminated the sad, untouched cider station and the laminated pamphlets fluttering in the wind. But instead of conceding defeat, Karen shifted gears. On November 1st, the sun barely up, she began hauling out boxes from her garage. Not Halloween storage, Christmas. By noon, her yard was transformed. A full nativity scene took center stage, complete with a light-up baby Jesus, glowing angels, plastic sheep, and a camel with one broken leg. She hung icicle lights across the roof, wrapped tinsel around the mailbox, and planted a sign that read, "Let every knee bow before him." It was still fall. The trees hadn't even finished shedding their leaves. But Karen had declared it Christmas. No one had the heart, or the energy, to argue. At first, we thought she was just trying to make a point. That she was overcompensating for her Halloween defeat with a big, flashy show of faith. But then November passed. Thanksgiving came and went. We put up our decorations in early December, had our caroling night, and even hosted a neighborhood cookie exchange. Karen wasn't invited, but she didn't seem to care. When January rolled around and the rest of us took our lights down and packed away our ornaments, her nativity scene stayed. Through cold winds and frost, it stood there, glowing 24/7, thanks to a generator she bought, just in case the enemy tried to cut her power. And then came February. The angels remained. Mary and Joseph weathered the snow. Even baby Jesus, by now slightly discolored and missing one eye due to a freak hailstorm, stayed put. By March, it was clear, Karen wasn't just skipping Halloween. She had decided Christmas was now a year-round event. And the rest of us were trapped in her holiday crusade, whether we liked it or not. By March, most of us on Willow Lane had come to accept that the nativity scene in Karen's front yard wasn't going anywhere. At first, it was funny, a quirk. Something you joke about when friends came over, don't mind the camel, it's part of Karen's year-round live-in Jesus display. But by the time the tulips were sprouting and the birds were returning, that glowing baby Jesus had outlived 3 snowstorms, a power outage, and a squirrel infestation in the angel's wing. The neighborhood had questions, mostly whispered, and always followed by a sigh. What was she trying to prove? How long would she keep it up? Was she ever going to take down the fake snowflakes on her windows? One day in early April, Emily Johnson, age 10 and always curious, dared to ask her. Karen was watering her plastic poinsettias. Yes, she had left those out too, when Emily skipped across the street and stood at the edge of the lawn. "Hi, Miss Karen," she chirped. Karen paused. "Hello, Emily," she replied with a cautious smile. Emily shaded her eyes and looked over the lawn. "So, is it still Christmas at your house?" Karen turned toward her, standing upright with the hose still running. "It's always Christmas in the heart of a true believer," she said, the words falling out like a well-rehearsed hymn lyric. Emily nodded slowly. "Okay. But even when it's Easter?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "Especially then." Emily squinted at the baby Jesus under the tarp of tinsel and plastic angels. "Do you ever, get tired of looking at him every day?" Karen let go of the hose. Water splashed into the flower bed. "I never get tired of honoring the Lord, Emily," she said, bending down to pinch a weed from the edge of the garden. "Unlike others in this neighborhood, I don't need to schedule my faith around commercialized holidays and chocolate eggs." Emily blinked. "My mom makes chocolate eggs for Jesus too." Karen stood again, brushing her gloved hands together. "Well, then your mother is one of the few trying." Emily shuffled her feet. "Okay. Bye," she said quickly, and ran back to her house, where she reported the conversation to her mother in great detail. Lauren Johnson just shook her head and muttered, "Of course she brought up chocolate eggs." But it wasn't just the kids who noticed. By mid-April, the rest of us had started noticing Karen's Christmas decorations were starting to evolve. First, she added more lights, not festive ones, but pure white LED strips that blinked like a Morse code message from heaven. Then came the banners. One across the garage door read *365 Days of Christ. Another was draped across her porch, He is the reason, every season. Some people thought it was just eccentricity. Others were sure she was sending a message. And then came the neighborhood group chat explosion. It started with a blurry photo posted by Megan from 3 houses down. She had walked past Karen's yard around 9 p.m. and noticed something new, a life-size mannequin dressed as Santa kneeling in front of the nativity scene. Underneath it, a cardboard sign in glitter letters read, "Even Santa bows." The reactions were instant. OMG what? Is she okay? I drove by earlier and thought that was a real person. The way she's got that baby Jesus lit up like a nightclub. Within hours, the post had over 100 comments and at least 5 memes. One had the camel wearing sunglasses with the caption, "Still waiting for Easter." Another photoshopped the angel holding a sign that read, "Send help." Karen, as always, didn't respond publicly. But the next day, she posted a lengthy note in her mailbox window addressed to all residents of Willow Lane. Typed, double-spaced, and sealed behind a plastic cover like a museum artifact, it read. I am saddened by the mockery. But I will not be moved. If the rest of the world wants to pretend Jesus is seasonal, that's their mistake. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, tinsel, camel, and all. Let those who laugh now reflect on the coming judgment. And just like that, the fire was reignited. Lauren Johnson, tired of explaining to guests why her neighbor had a glowing manger scene in spring, called an emergency HOA meeting. This time, the turnout was huge. The entire block showed up, half to vent, half to witness the drama. Even Rick, the HOA president who usually phoned in his duties, showed up in person, holding a clipboard that actually had paper on it for once. Let me be clear, he began, standing in front of the community center's flagpole. No one is telling anyone what religion to practice. But keeping Christmas decorations up year-round is not in line with our HOA guidelines regarding seasonal displays. Someone from the back shouted, "Then why didn't you say anything in January?" Rick raised a hand. "We thought it would resolve naturally." "Well, it's June," someone else muttered. "That camel's been staring at my bedroom window for 6 months." Karen stood off to the side, arms folded, wearing a sweatshirt that said Team Bethlehem. She waited until everyone had finished complaining, then calmly stepped forward. "I will not take them down," she said. "And unless the HOA plans to fine me into bankruptcy, I suggest you all get used to the view. You let people hang inflatable vampires and zombies for weeks, yet when I leave up a symbol of peace and love, I'm the problem." "It's April," Rick said slowly. Karen smiled. "Exactly. More people need Jesus in April." There was a long, awkward silence. Then, perhaps sensing that resistance would only fuel her campaign further, Rick turned back to the group. "We'll revisit this matter in July." Karen beamed, knowing she had at least a few more months to keep her nativity scene glowing. But her victory wasn't as sweet as she'd hoped. Because by May, the baby Jesus statue had started to melt. A combination of direct sun, poor-quality plastic, and whatever off-brand floodlights she was using left his face warped and drooping like a Salvador Dali painting. One of the sheep lost an ear. The kneeling Santa's glitter sign began to flake, leaving behind a barely legible asterisk, "Ven saw W." Asterisk. Yet Karen refused to back down. In fact, she leaned in harder. She began rotating the angels' positions every few days, like they were taking shifts. She added a small speaker that played "O Holy Night" every hour, on the hour. One night in June, we caught her in the yard around midnight, dusting off the plastic camel while humming "Little Drummer Boy." The rest of us had stopped trying to understand it. But what we didn't know then was that Karen's crusade hadn't peaked yet. No, the real climax would arrive in July, when she crossed a line no one thought she'd dare approach, and someone finally decided to fight back. It was a sweltering July afternoon when Karen's Christmas crusade finally pushed the neighborhood past its limit. The sun was blazing, the cicadas were screaming, and while most of us were struggling to keep our lawns green and our tempers short, Karen was out in her front yard, in a red velour Mrs. Claus dress, setting up what could only be described as a full-blown, Christmas in July, spectacular. She had dragged out a fake Christmas tree and wired it to her mailbox post. Red and gold ornaments shimmered in the 103-degree heat, and a string of battery-powered snowflakes blinked furiously in defiance of the season. She even added a cooler beside her porch labeled, "Free Hot Cocoa," with packets of powdered Swiss Miss and lukewarm water bottles stuffed in half-melted ice. The nativity scene was still there, of course. By now, it looked more like a weathered yard sale than a holy shrine. Baby Jesus had lost most of his facial features to the sun, and one of the wise men had toppled over completely, his hand forever outstretched in a melted loop of plastic. But Karen didn't seem to notice, or care. She was busy pinning laminated Bible verses to her front hedge and humming "Silent Night" as if the middle of summer was the perfect time for a winter lullaby. Around 2 p.m. Rick, the HOA president, showed up in shorts, flip-flops, and the expression of a man whose patience had finally snapped. He rang Karen's doorbell 3 times. No answer. So he walked around to the side of the house, carefully sidestepping the choir of solar-powered angels, and called out, "Karen?" She appeared from behind a folding screen draped in candy cane wrapping paper. Her cheeks were flushed, likely from the heat, though she insisted it was from the joy of the Lord. "Afternoon, Rick," she said, not bothering to hide her suspicion. "Come to enjoy the celebration?" Rick pulled off his sunglasses. "Karen, you can't keep doing this." "I'm spreading cheer," she replied. "You're melting plastic figures onto your lawn and driving the entire block insane," he shot back, pointing toward the mangled Santa figure now laying sideways under the oak tree. She folded her arms. "I'm well within my rights." Rick sighed. "We've received 16 formal complaints. 6 about the music, 3 about the flashing lights, and one from the Postal Service about your Nativity camel blocking access to the mailbox." Karen narrowed her eyes. "Persecution. Just like the early church." Rick rubbed his temples. "No, Karen. This is not the Roman Empire. It's Willow Lane, and you're turning it into a year-round Christmas cult." That was when Karen smiled, and not the pleasant kind. The slow, knowing kind that meant she had an ace up her sleeve. "I read the HOA charter front to back," she said. "There is no official clause against extended seasonal displays. Nothing with specific time limits. It's all based on interpretation. I even had it reviewed by a lawyer. My nephew Brent. He's in online law school." Rick groaned. "Karen, just because it's not technically banned doesn't mean it's not a problem." She turned back to her yard with a sweeping gesture. "What's the problem with a little light in the darkness? With reminding people of something bigger than inflatable Frankensteins and candy corn?" Rick stepped forward, lowering his voice. "It's July. Your nativity scene has melted. You've got a reindeer with a wasp nest inside it. The angel speakers keep waking up Margaret's baby at 1 a.m. And someone reported a fire hazard because one of your extension cords is frayed and sparking near the dry hedges." Karen blinked but said nothing. Rick sighed again, as if the weight of the whole HOA rested on his shoulders. "We're giving you a deadline. August 1st. All Christmas decorations must be taken down or covered. After that, we'll start issuing fines." And yes, the board already voted. Karen's lips pressed into a tight line. "This is religious discrimination." "No," Rick replied. "This is seasonal exhaustion." Then he turned and left, stepping over a pile of jingle bells as he went. For once, Karen didn't argue. She didn't post a manifesto in her mailbox. She didn't hold a prayer circle or hand out peppermint-themed flyers. She went silent. Which, honestly, was even scarier. August 1st came, and to everyone's shock, Karen complied. Sort of. That morning, just after sunrise, she was seen dismantling her nativity scene. The melted baby Jesus was placed in a large Tupperware bin with "Fragile, Holy" written on it in black marker. The kneeling Santa was wheeled into the garage on a dolly. Even the reindeer with the wasp nest was carted away. By noon, her yard was bare for the first time in almost a year. The neighborhood buzzed. People peeked out their blinds. Kids rode bikes in front of her house just to marvel at the unadorned porch. But Karen wasn't done. Exactly 1 week later, she re-emerged with a new lawn display. It wasn't Christmas-themed. Not overtly. It was a massive cross, 10 feet tall, made from what appeared to be white PVC pipe, and wrapped in pink tulle, gold ribbon, and blinking solar-powered lights. At its base sat a hand-painted sign that read, He is risen. Forever. That's when we realized Karen had adapted. Christmas was just the beginning. From that day forward, she changed the display monthly. September brought an elaborate armor of God set up with cardboard swords and homemade shields. October featured a giant spiritual harvest cornucopia filled with plastic fruit and tracts. November was Give Thanks Unto Him month, complete with a rotating turkey that gobbled scriptures. But there were no more Santas. No more mangers. No more melting baby Jesus statues. Karen had found a loophole. And honestly, most of us just gave up fighting it. Because somehow, her persistence, her unwavering commitment to her own strange version of spiritual display, had become part of Willow Lane's charm. New families would drive in and say, "Oh yeah, that's the Jesus lady's house." And we'd nod, exasperated but fond. We didn't agree with her methods. We didn't even like most of her decorations. But by the end of the year, we'd all learned one undeniable truth. Karen was going to be Karen. And Christmas? Well, on Willow Lane, it never really ended.